How you guys doing? This is George from EastLA.com, and we're just gonna wait a couple minutes to get the crowd up, so hopefully people start getting on and watching. Hey, hi, BD. Okay, we're gonna start right now in about a minute. Okay. Okay, we're ready to go. Okay, Gil.
Yes.
Hey, Gil. First of all, I want to introduce to you uh, a real good friend of mine. I've known him for about 30 years, and his name is Gil Carrillo. He was also a police officer for the East LA Sheriff's Department, and he was also was the one that solved the Night Stalker case. I don't know. I know a lot of people remember the Night Stalker case, but a lot of the younger generation doesn't know about the Night Stalker case. So, anyways, I'm gonna introduce Gil. Gil's has been in the sheriff's department for over 38 years. He retired a couple years back, and we still connected. And now that I have the platform where I wanted to interview him and talk a little bit more about what happened at that time when the Night Stalker brought terror to the whole state of California. So, anyways, I wanted to introduce Gil Carrillo. What's up, Gil?
Hey, how you doing, George? Thank you for having me on your broadcast.
Yes, Gil. Thank you so much for your time on a Friday night, and we're gonna get into it and talk about what's going on and what happened.
You got it.
Perfect. I wanted to ask you a question, and I always wanted to ask you this, Gil. When all those killings started taking place uh, back in Los Angeles, I think was it 88 or 89 when that was happening?
It was the first one was March 17th of 1985.
1985.
Yes.
So this guy was on the loose for a couple years, right?
Well, no, he was on the loose for a long time, but not that long. We got the first one. I got assigned the first case March 17th, 1985, and he was arrested August 31st of 1985. So essentially, 6 months later, we had him.
Wow. So it was pretty quick. During those 6 months, he killed about 13 people.
We filed 14 counts of murder. We also filed some child abductions on him.
Wow.
Eventually, as the case started to go to trial, we dismissed one count of murder in the interest of justice. That was the murder of Patty Elaine Higgins, which occurred on June 28th of 1985. And it was a matter of they were trying to sever that case. So you had 14 murders. They wanted to try one murder by itself and then the other 13 together, because Patty Lane Higgins' case was the only one that was independent. There wasn't evidence leaking him from one or the other cases. But rather than go ahead and sever that case, we just decided, Deputy District Attorney Phil Halpin, with his concurrence and concurrence of his executives, they decided, let's just dismiss that one case and let's move forward on the other 13.
Wow.
And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, I remember like in 1986, I remember my mom, wouldn't even open up the window.
Sure.
And I remember telling my mom, I said, wait a minute, how's a Night Stalker going to come to East LA, man? There's like 10 families in every house, and everybody's got guns and everything like that. And I'm like, oh, man, he ain't going to come to East LA. But my mom, during the summer, she would close the windows up, man. We would be burning up, man. I would be so mad. I was saying, I hope they catch this guy. And
yeah, he didn't want to go into any of the barrios, He only went into the barrio in the end because he was on the run. He got made on a bus.
That's crazy. That's unbelievable what happened. But Gil, I know when I started promoting this a couple days ago, there was one guy that I know. I grew up with his wife passed away, but his wife's side of the family I know very, very well. They grew up with us right there in L.A. And he said something that his aunt was murdered. Irene Ramirez was raped and murdered behind a bar in East Los Angeles. And I was like, wow, he wrote that on the Facebook page, and I was pretty blown away by that. But I could imagine how many families were affected, and also the stuff that he was doing was pretty radical, man. This guy was cutting people up, writing blood on the walls, and unbelievable stuff like that.
He was different, he was different, and he was good at what he did. And if you take him for what it's worth, he was good at what he did. Fortunately for us, we were good at what we did.
Wow.
So it's just good versus evil, and the good prevailed. We were able to stop him in his reign of terror.
Now, Gil, when did you jump into the case? Right away when it happened, or was it given to you?
No. I had the very first murder, March 17th, 1985. Dale Okazaki, 8510 Village Lane was where she was living at the time, in the city of Rosemead. And her roommate was a young lady by the name of Maria Hernandez. Excuse me. And Maria survived. Dale was shot and killed. Maria was shot. She survived the gunshot wound. And that was the first murder of the modern series.
Wow.
And just started working it like I would any other murder. It's just that because we had a surviving victim, she was able to give us some her idea of what he looked like, and we knew what he did, and so it gave us a little something just to start working the case. And it was what we called in the business a whodunit. So now it's time to go look for whodunit, and we had millions and millions of people living in Los Angeles County, so try and find them.
Needle in a haystack.
That's right.
And also too, Gil, like say when you first got the description of him, you guys had no clue that this guy was a serial killer at all.
No. You never know if it's a serial killer till you get more murders.
Yeah.
And since this was the first one in the modern series, we had nothing to go on. We found out the next day that a girl, 50 minutes after Dale Okazaki was murdered, there was a girl in Monterey Park, Silent Yu, that was also murdered. So the difference being Dale Okazaki was Japanese, and the second lady was Chinese. So, and you had two Asians, but you don't normally mix the Japanese with the Chinese people. They're two different people, and the Japanese lady had a Mexican roommate. And so just a little different. You're so busy the first few days, essentially you just let the other guys work their case, we work our case, And then as things slow down, then we'll touch bases and get together and see what goes on. Well, fortunately, by the end of the month, there was another murder in Whittier. And on that murder, we got our first good break on physical evidence. We found shoe prints. And the shoe prints on that case there were made by an Avia Model 440. And so when that shoe started showing up at a few places in the shoe print, we knew that there was good possibility. We had physical descriptions coupled with a shoe print and characteristics of what was going on. I was pretty sure there was a single man responsible for this. And that shoe print became ever so important. We put 2 investigators on it and just told them, find everything you can about the shoe. And they're looking at us and they're saying, okay, well, where do we start? We're not looking for a bot, we're looking for a shoe print. And I said, I don't care, start at the Orange County line and move west. So those 2 guys, Johnny Yarbrough and Bobby Gann, did a tremendous job, to the point where I can tell you today, without equivocation at all, without any doubt in my mind,
Wow.
on January 9th, 1985, 1,356 pair of Model 440 Avias arrived in New York from Taiwan for distribution throughout the U.S., of which 6 pair made it to the state of California, 1 pair made it to the city of Los Angeles. So you can see that that's a mighty important shoe print left behind. And we were able to put one of the guys from our crime lab, we sent a criminalist up to Oregon, where they met Mr. Jerry Stubblefield, who had the patent on the shoe. And it was through him that we were able to develop the records, get the shoe pattern, the sole print, and tremendous help in solving the case.
Wow. So technically, of course, Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, he had no clue that you guys had one piece of evidence.
No. He was on his reign of terror, and he's now deceased. And you ever want to stick a feather in anybody's cap, especially when somebody's as evil as he is. But he was good at what he did, and so he was able to elude being caught. He was able to elude law enforcement. He was very stealth-like in his movements, and people, after being in law enforcement for so long, George, you look at people and you say, I listen to people tell me, oh, that guy looks so sinister. Oh, that guy looks so evil, speaking about other people on the street. And in realities, nobody really knows what serial killers look like.
Yeah.
If you look at Ted Bundy, who looked just as normal as could be, looked like Harvey Milquetoast. And matter of fact, when he went to trial, the judge said he'd have made a great litigant. He'd have made a great attorney.
Wow.
And so you just don't know what somebody looks like. There was one lady that testified in the Night Stalker trial that said he was quite the handsome young man. So he just blended right in with everybody else in L.A. County.
And yeah, especially he was brown, so
Yeah.
he blended in. Wow. And another crazy thing, as he continued to do these horrific murders, was he wearing the same pair of shoes?
Yes, he wore the same pair of shoes up until about a month before he got captured. Then he had changed, maybe just not even a month. He changed shoes on us, and so a politician, put out some information on the Night Stalker and the shoes and the car and the gun, and so Richard said those shoes went off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow, he threw them out. So he threw those shoes off when he committed that murder in San Francisco?
That's right, up in San Francisco.
Wow. That's crazy. That's unbelievable. That's I remember, man, vividly how the whole city of LA was so paranoid at night. Uh, I remember my neighbors, man. They were scared. You know, and it was the summertime. You know, in LA, a lot of the houses don't have central air because we have some of the best weather in the world. You know, but at night, it's really when you get that cool breeze that kind of cools down the house, and you can't because everybody was locked up. I
Sure.
mean, it was everybody was scared. It
Believe
was
me, trust
next.
me, it was that way in my house. I had a young son at that time, and he was probably he was 7 years old. He was frightened to death. And it took him years, finally, at the insistence of his father, that's me, telling him, son, you're not a little boy anymore, you're a man. Open up your window, let some fresh air in here.
Wow.
Because his bedroom, he was afraid to open up his window even when he became an adult and he was still
Oh,
living here. So it affected people in a lot of ways. And you're absolutely right. It was an extremely hot summer that year,
yeah.
and people were sleeping with their windows closed because they were so afraid. Burglar alarms were going off the hook, gun sales went up. It was a terrifying summer, to say the least.
Now, I could imagine everybody was freaking out, and so they probably got a lot of phone calls from people saying we heard a noise in the backyard, and then everybody's, all the police officers try to take every call. You know, it could have been a tip.
It was an extremely busy time for law enforcement. The good part about it is the public really didn't become aware of it until the end of June, the very beginning of July. That's when they really got wind that there was a serial killer going on. And
Wow.
prior to that, there wasn't that much publication because his victims were random and they were all over LA County.
Wow. And Gil, when did you go to every murder? Did you witness all that stuff when you were walking in?
I witnessed a majority of them, but it occurred in the city of Los Angeles or murders that occurred, let's say, in Monterey Park. Those agencies handled their own murder investigations, so they would go initially. A couple of them, in May, I went to Monterey Park. I was called up and asked to go take a look and see what they had. So I did. I went down to look, and I went to LAPD. I went out to Sun Valley to look at out there in Sunland, and I also went to the city of Burbank. This was after their murders had occurred. We were notified the next day, so we went out and took a look at the crime scene. But when we go out, it's not the amount of victims that we saw. But certainly the ones in Los Angeles counties and the ones that we worked for cities that we were under contract for, like the city of Arcadia. We conducted their murder investigations. We go out there and people expect people such as yourself or others in the community. They talk about crime scene must have been terrible. The blood, the guts, the gore, all the blood, everything around. Well, it is to the non-professional. It doesn't. It's nothing to myself because it's all very scientific. You're not seeing blood, guts, and gore. You're looking at a story, and that's got to tell you a story. You got to be able to read it, study it, and comprehend it.
Interesting. Yeah, we have a question by Vito Acosta Ramirez. The question that came up was, she said, "What was the history as a child? Was he abused? Did he say anything that he was abused?"
He indicated that he was abused. He told us he was abused as a child. His dad used to beat him and laugh when he beat him. And so Richard tells me that he used to, in order to get away from his dad, he'd get out of the house and go stay at the cemetery, go sleep in the cemetery for the night.
Wow.
And I laughed and I said, if I talk to Richard, no different than I'm talking to you. And Richard called me Gil and I called him Rich. And I said, damn, Rich, wasn't that scary sleeping in the cemetery? I couldn't think of doing something like that.
Wow.
He says it was the only place he could get some peace and tranquility. He was peaceful there, so it didn't bother him. But he said he was a victim of child abuse. Said he was going to knew he'd be different by the age of 9 because he looked out his window and saw his neighbor. She was wearing cut-off shorts, like Daisy Dukes. They were folded up, and she was wearing a T-shirt. She was out washing her car. And so essentially he saw at age 9 what sounded like a wet T-shirt contest. And he said he knew he was going to be different from then.
Wow.
And, he was somewhat of a loner. He was a loner. Didn't have any girlfriends, was kind of kept to himself, shut off. That's about it.
That's amazing. Yeah, and then I remember, especially as began to kill. I remember Monterey Park being attacked. I don't know how many people got killed in Monterey Park, but for some reason, I just remembered Monterey Park a lot.
Well, he did get Sophie Dickman. She survived. She was a surviving rape victim. She lived in Monterey Park. There was Joyce Nelson. She was murdered in Monterey Park. And there was William and Emily Doy. William Doy was murdered. Emily was sexually assaulted but survived. She had already been the victim of a stroke prior to Richard being there. So she was already a sick lady. So you had that, and then you had a couple of, you had a young boy that was kidnapped out of there, sexually assaulted and released. And
wow.
You had Silent U. Well, that was Alhambra, right next to Monterey Park.
Now, do you think that he was worse than Charles Manson?
Well, you can't compare. He did more murders.
Yeah.
But Charles Manson was manipulative. He had the power, and he had his minions. He had the Manson family doing all of his work for him. And he was using a lot of dope, and he was running like a little occult. And Richard didn't. Richard committed all these crimes, all these murders and abductions he did on his own. And his motivation was he was in Satanism.
Yeah. I know that he's listed AC/DC. That he said that will fuel them, especially that song "Shoot to Thrill" would get them all riled up.
He liked the song. His favorite song was Night Prowler.
Night Prowler, wow.
He liked the song Night Prowler. And I will say categorically right now that AC/DC does not promote, nor did their music indicate. They weren't devil worshippers themselves.
Yeah, they weren't.
There used to be on MTV a program called Behind the Scenes. And so I did a talk show interview with them about the AC/DC group. And they were just they were just another band out there playing their own hard rock type of music. And my wife, who's a very religious lady, and I told her I was going to do a talk show on AC/DC. The first thing she said was, "Oh, you mean that devil-worshipping band that your daughter listens to?"
Wow.
And I had to laugh, and I said, "Dear, they're not a devil-worshipping band, and my daughter's not into Satanism." So she likes her music.
I listen to AC/DC, so I didn't go kill people.
Hey, and I was there for a while. I was the hit of all her friends because they all watched MTV and they listened to AC/DC. So when I came out in favor of AC/DC, it said that they were nothing but good musicians playing good music and had nothing to do with satanic worship. Well, I became, I jumped up to the top of the list of friends with my children friends.
Wow. Yeah, that was crazy. Now, just another thought. Like when you walked into a crime scene, right? What was the worst thing you did? I mean, I don't know if it's true, but I heard they take people's eyes out.
There was one lady, Mrs. Zazzara, which he did her on March of 29th, and he actually mutilated her somewhat. Several stab wounds, cut her up, and stab wounds in her pubic area, but he did cut her eyes out. And he took great pleasure in not telling us what he did with them.
Oh, he didn't say he didn't know what he did with
No,
them.
he
He
didn't
probably
want
ate
to.
them.
He didn't want to tell us what he did with them, and he knew we wanted to know, but he didn't want to tell us. In his words, Richard said he's got an ego, and he said he's got an ego that would fill the room that we were in. He said, I got an ego that'll fill this room.
Yeah.
And he enjoyed having information that he knew that we didn't know. So it kind of like made him feel superior to us when he had information that we didn't.
Wow. That's
Like
crazy.
a cat and mouse game.
Yeah, I think in '85, he terrorized the residents of Southern California, San Francisco.
Yes.
So he did 13 murders, 11 sexual assaults, and the Night Stalker case was brought back in the public eye when Ryan Murphy's version of it was featured in American Horror Story. Now, did you see the American Horror Story
No.
of the Night Stalker? Okay.
No.
So apparently, you know, they did some number of fictional characters, but it wasn't valid of what he did. But in saying that, like, Gil, what did you feel? Like, did you feel any fear um, during that time? I know there was a big responsibility on your shoulders because you're the. I mean, just think about it for a second. Our fingerprint is unique. Nobody has the same fingerprint. But it's crazy how you, Gil, you're the only one. You were the one that was going to solve that case. But in between that, did you feel any fear? Like I could imagine you going into seeing somebody chopped up, blood everywhere. You're just like, oh man, how did you feel?
It there was no time for fear. And George, you've been around long enough. You were listening to professional athletes where they act one way, and then all of a sudden, one day, and you hear them talking about putting their game face on, and they become professionals. You look at Kershaw.
Yeah.
Kershaw is friendly and he jokes around in the dugout and everything, but now come game time, it's all business. It's all serious. Well, when you're working these cases, whether it be a Night Stalker case or any kind of murder, it could be a transient. It could be a gang member, a couple of gang members. You all look at them the same. You put your game face on, you've got a job to do. In this case, there was an awful lot of pressure. There was pressure from the communities, there was pressure from the executives, and there was driven pressure because I had to worry about my own family.
Wow.
I come from a large, good old Mexican family. So, I mean, I have 6 sisters, and I still had my mom at that time. And, with nephews and nieces, and then you get into friends, and you've got to be able to try and do what you got to do to save them. So you're just driven. Every bit of my time was driven towards trying to solve the case. There was no free time.
Wow, no free time.
No.
And I mean, it was crazy because you guys caught him within 6 months.
Yes.
Wow, that was fast.
It was,
and
it was the effort. And you saying I'm the only one. I was the only investigator on him from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't have done it without the support of the Homicide Bureau. There were 24 investigators that we had doing various, assigned to a task force that were working. I had a partner, Frank Salerno. He and I did everything. Then you had to thank the community. Thousands of people called in with tips and clues. And these other investigators, they're following up on clues that people are calling in. And so this was truly a joint effort between everybody. I consider myself, the analogy I use, George, would be if you look at a major symphony orchestra and you look at the conductor of that orchestra, he does not know how to play every instrument in that orchestra, but he knows what kind of sound they should give him. So he's directing the woodwinds a little more, brass soften it up, percussions, give me some more. And so you put all that coupled with the strings, and he puts it all together, and it makes beautiful music. I'm the lead investigator, so I can't go out and conduct every interview there is to do. There's not enough time in the day to do that. So you then start directing other investigators what to do for you. You start directing the crime lab, what you need out of them. And they give you something from firearms. They give you something from latent prints. They get you something from the physical section, serology. And you put all these components together, coupled with what you've learned at the autopsies, coupled with the information, the knowledge that we have as criminal investigators, and you come up with a solution. But it takes everybody working together. And I just, as lead investigators, what you do is you manage everything, put it together.
Now, who labeled him the Night Stalker?
News media.
The news beta named him the night because he did everything at night, right?
Yeah, well, no, he didn't, but that's what they thought.
Oh,
and so they were calling up, and they'd say, "What are you calling him? What are you calling him?" Well, we give them the same answer. They said, "Do you have a name for him yet?" And say, "Yes, we do." And what is it? Suspect. We just kept saying he's a suspect. That's what we're calling him. It was the news media. It's the news media that gives all these names out to these people. You know, the Son of Sam, the Freeway Killer, the Freeway Slasher,
the Burrito Killer.
State Killer. You know, so it's the news media that gives these names out.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, there's a question here. Henry Fimbres, you probably know Henry Fimbres. He's the vice president of the Police Association or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, he
very well-known law enforcement family.
Yeah, he said, wasn't Richard Ramirez responsible for the rape and murder near Wilcox Elementary School, Montebello? Was there a murder in Montebello?
Wasn't he responsible for the rape and what?
Murder near Wilcox Elementary in Montebello?
There was no murder. There was a 5-year-old girl that was kidnapped right from that area. She was kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and released. But there was no murder.
No murder.
No murder.
Okay. Yeah, well, Richard Rodriguez, another guy that I'm connected to, he said, of course, he wants to ask about Irene Ramirez, which that was his aunt.
You were breaking up on that. He wants to ask about something Ramirez?
Irene Ramirez. She was killed behind a bar in East L.A. Apparently, the Night Stalker killed Irene. Do you remember that name? Does that name ring out to you?
No, she wasn't killed by the Night Stalker. I can tell you that right now. There was nobody killed in East Los Angeles by Ramirez at all.
At all.
And
it was all outskirts.
Certainly, she could have been killed by somebody else, but not by Ramirez.
Okay, cool. And how many times did you feel like you guys were close to catching him? I mean, you saw the footprints. There was no fingerprints. So you guys were taking DNA, right? They had DNA back then?
We didn't even have DNA during that time. That was before DNA. And even fingerprints, they weren't, in 1985, all fingerprints weren't automated. Only felony arrests were automated. Misdemeanors and others are just still hand searched. So it was a much more difficult way to identify somebody back then. We didn't know who we had. We knew, we said 1 week before his arrest, and we had no idea who he was. But we said, we will have him within 2 weeks. 2 more weeks, we'll have him. He was captured the following week. We told on August 30th, we positively identified him and we had a name on him with a photo. We asked the sheriff, and the sheriff, then Sheriff Block, had a meeting with Daryl Gates, the then chief of police for LAPD, Brad Gates, the sheriff of Orange County, and they had a conference call in Block's office with the police chief from San Francisco. And before that meeting, we were asked, the sheriff wants to know your feeling on the release of the suspect information. And this is about 3 p.m. on Friday, August 30th. We said, please ask him to hold off, to give us 24 hours, and we'll have him in custody. And they didn't. They couldn't. They released it that night. And I can understand why. Their feeling was, if Richard committed another murder Friday night, with us knowing who he was and not warning people about him, then we would certainly be liable. It really wouldn't bode well, especially since, and it's not nice to say, but the sheriff was a political position. And so it wouldn't look good, but whether it was look good or not, it was a good thing that they released it. And hindsight's 2020. As it turns out, Richard had left town on Wednesday, and he was headed for, matter of fact, he got a traffic citation right there in downtown L.A. And he left for Arizona to go visit a brother over there. And when he couldn't make contact with his brother, he took the Greyhound bus back to L.A. And he came back in Saturday morning. When he went to the bus station in the Greyhound bus depot, and that was his home. That's his comfort zone. He knew the bus station. And we had an informant that said, I don't care how many cops you stick around, he'll make the cops. Because cops can put on dirty clothes, but they don't smell dirty, and their teeth aren't rotten, and their hair is clean. Mm-hmm. So they'll be made. He'll make them. He's a street person. And as it turns out, Richard got off the bus because we had a contingent of cops. We knew that was his hangout all around the outside and on the inside of the bus depot, waiting for him to come in. Well, we didn't expect him to come in on the bus. He came in on the bus and said, man, there's too many people strange here that don't belong. So he went out the way the bus came in. So cops are looking for him to come in, and he walked out right where the bus comes in. Went and he got on then, I don't know what they're called now. It used to be RTD. Now it's Metro Lines. The RTD. Richard actually had a brother that lived right off of Olympic and Brannock there in East L.A. And so he was just trying to get on the bus. And if he'd have made it to Olympic and Brannock, he felt he was home free because he went into a liquor store and saw his picture on the front page of the paper.
That's crazy. I'm going to stop you right there. Now,
sure.
Before, how I know at close to the last murders, you impounded a car, correct?
We impounded his car.
His car. At the last or close to the last murder?
Well, no. After after he hit up in San Francisco, he went down to Orange County in Mission Viejo. And the car that he used down in Mission Viejo, that's the one that we found just a couple of days before his arrest. That's the one that we've lifted a fingerprint off of. We did. Orange County did.
So they found the fingerprint behind the visor, right, when he moved it?
Yes.
Wow.
That's what I'm told.
Unbelievable. So that's how. So we went to the store. That's when he saw his picture, and then the rest is.
He got on the bus, tried to make it right there at Olympic and Soto. Some passenger saw him and took a double take, and then the bus was stopped at a red light right there. So he got off the bus, and there was a phone booth right there, and he saw him going right for the phone booth. Richard knew he had just been made. So he went down to Olympic and Lorena, and he got off on Lorena, and that's where he started running on foot. And you know the area. He ran through the barrio and ran over sound walls across the Santa Ana freeway.
He messed up.
Made it all
not in East L.A. You're not going to get away with that.
Ran up Indiana till he got to Hubbard and then turned right on Hubbard. And that's, we tried to carjack a second car, and that's where he got hit in the head.
Wow.
And then the neighborhood held him down. And they didn't, it was the good people that got him. And they really didn't know who he was. They just thought he was some knucklehead trying to steal a car. So they held him for the cops. Had it been homeboys, they'd have killed him.
Oh, yeah.
Not knowing who he was, they'd have killed him anyway.
They had to kill him right down the street or have been over.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. I remember when he was caught, there was like an oppression lifted. It was weird. Like right after you guys caught him, you see people going back to normal, open up their windows. It was so crazy.
Sure.
You know,
celebration.
Yeah, they were celebrating. You know, because I mean, just the damage that he did, and you know, people will go to bed at night thinking, what is he going to do next? Because he killed a lot of people pretty quick.
Yes. During that time, he killed 13. We added the 14th. We found out that after it was all done, when I was working the case, I got a phone call from LAPD and out of Northeast Division, and he told me he's working a case from June of '84. He says, it sure sounds what you're working on. And I said, well, just hold on to it. He said, well, we got a live print. I said, okay, well, hold on to it. When we make our suspect, bring your print over and we'll match him. And that's what he did. And Richard was good for that one. So he hit June of 1984, and then he did absolutely nothing murder-wise and didn't start again until March of '85.
Wow. So he kind of disappeared for a little bit, or
yes.
kind of, you know, did what he probably.
Part of the time he went back to El Paso, which is where he's from. He went back to visit and spent some time back there.
Interesting. Hey, Gil, you interviewed him, right? In
yes.
the interviewing room?
Yes.
I mean, what did he do? Was he acting crazy, or was he mellow?
No, he was kind of mellow. At one point in time, George, and I'm not embarrassed to say this at all, but during the first interview I had with him, and I was playing with his anxiety level. And by that, I mean, as a professional, doing what I do, I've got to be good at interviewing people. I've got to be able to know when somebody's lying, know when somebody's telling me the truth, how to extract information from them, and doing that with the utmost of understanding. And I learned this understanding from a college professor who's a retired FBI agent, and I owe him everything, Dr. Robert Morneau. And he said, you don't condone, but you have to understand that people do things for a reason. So I knew in my heart, I knew why Richard was doing what he did, because it was sex to him. He was a lust killer. Wow. And it was all sexually motivated for him. So I understood that. I didn't condone it, but I understood it. So if I understand it, it makes it much easier for me to talk to somebody without getting angry, without being offensive. When he says, I stuck a knife and stuck it in her throat, listen to her gurgle. Well, I don't sit there and say, wow, ooh, the face you just made, your eyes got
whoa,
big.
What the heck?
And I can't do that.
Yeah.
I just sit there and say, really? Man, I bet you that was awesome to hear. That's not what I really mean.
Yeah.
But I got to go along with it because I need to have him understand that there's no ill feelings going on in here. Man, this is just a job. You're human. I'm human. That's all it is. So that's the way I dealt with Richard. Like I said, he called me Gil and I called him Rich. At one point in time in our first meeting, he had his head on the desk and I'm playing with his anxiety level. So I'm raising his anxiety level and lowering it. And I'm doing this to find out what kind of areas I can get into and talk to him about, ask him questions and get straight answers. So as I'm doing this, I'm talking about his family. And in particular, I'm talking about his sister. And when I started talking about his sister and the interrelationship between her and the rest of the family, he had his head on his ear was on the desktop and his hands were in front of him, just like he was resting his forearms on the table, and he had his fists clenched. His hands were clenched in a fist. Head turned sideways, and he started breathing heavy. He started hyperventilating. He started going, taking deep breaths. Now I'm sitting there. I am totally into this. Now for a millisecond, you have to remember, I'm thinking of everything, and I know the guy was into Satanism, and he's doing this. For a millisecond, I'm sitting there saying, okay, if this guy starts levitating off of that desk, out of that chair, I'm out of here. You know, I've been in fights before. I've been stabbed and I've been shot at. But I can't be fighting somebody that's going to be floating around this room. So it did concern me a little bit.
Wow.
But, you know, then reality is, hey, this guy's just human. That's all he is.
Yeah.
And he ain't nothing more and ain't nothing less.
Unbelievable. It's just an unbelievable story. To me, I think that was the worst that I've seen. As growing up, somebody doing killings like that, because this guy was going crazy for a little bit.
Yeah.
And all the victims, all the people that were just messed up because of this. Now Gil, after I saw a picture of you walking in the courtroom. I posted on eaststories.com. You're in the front, and then they're kind of walking in. Was that time when they were going in for arraignment?
The only time that I ever walked with, there's a picture that's been on video before that I've seen, and I've seen it in a couple of documentaries. And that's where we're walking. We're actually walking them in, not through IRC at the jail, but we're walking them in the back door to the jail to get them into the hospital wards. That's where 4 of us are around him. Is that the picture you're talking about, where 4 of us are escorting him in? Yeah, that's actually escorting him the day of his arrest into the jail. That was the day of his arrest.
Interesting. Now, he didn't deny anything, right? He just went ahead and said, yeah, he did. He confessed to everything?
Well, no. In the beginning, first thing he did was invoke his rights. He said he wanted an attorney. So he said, okay, that's it. Good enough. We'll see you later. And then he had questions, and they said, well, you've already said you don't want to talk to us. He said, well, no, I'd like to ask you a few questions. So we said, okay. Now, you have to understand a little bit of the law, and that is, he's already been advised of his constitutional right. Anything you say can't be used against you in court of law. Okay, well, he's invoked his right and said, I want an attorney. Okay, so we can no longer use anything he says unless we can continue to listen to him, continue to talk to him. If he decides to take the stand, then we can use it in rebuttal to what he says. We can't use it as a case in chief, but we can use it in rebuttal. So, and then for the first few times, he would talk in the third person. He would not say, I did this. This is what happened. He would say, the Night Stalker may have done this. The Night Stalker would have done this. The Night Stalker. Always referring to the Night Stalker in the third person.
Wow.
And so that's how we communicate. And he said in the beginning, because I've referred to you, I told you, he had some kiddie charges against him. We charged him originally with 4 or 5 child abductions and sexual assaults. But we dismissed those in the interest of justice because we didn't feel like putting the children or their families through the trauma once again when we already knew we were going to convict them for the murders.
Sure.
How many times can we have them killed, So we let the kiddie cases go. He said in the beginning, drop the kiddie cases and I'll confess to everything. And we just told him, we can't do that. That's not up to us. It wasn't our decision. And so we never talked to him in the first person until after the case was adjudicated, after trial and after his sentencing. Then we sat down for about 4 or 5 days with him before he got sent to the joint. And there we talked about the cases in the first person. And there he talked a little bit about them.
Interesting. That is so crazy being face to face with that guy. It probably would have been mind blowing just to sit there and just listen to everything that was happening and stuff.
It's still fascinating to me.
Wow. And now that was probably the biggest case for in your career, right? That you were running.
That is the most noteworthy case, certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly the most noteworthy case. I still lecture. Been called to lecture on it right now as we speak. We're in negotiations. They want to do documentary on it, a real documentary.
Yeah, real
A
documentary.
real one, not these 1 hour shows that you see on TV, but we're talking a real in-depth documentary on it.
Now, after he was put into prison, did you ever contact him again, or that was it?
I saw him one more time after he got sent up there, and then that was it. He said that he sent word down. First off, when he was convicted, he said he wanted to talk to us within about 7 years. He would talk to us again because he was good for 4 more murders in L.A. County that we were unaware of. And we looked at least 8 different murders, but there wasn't enough evidence to convict him on. And so we didn't want to bring them in because we didn't want the jury to find him innocent on 1 or 2, and that could persuade him that he might not be guilty of these other ones. So we just let everything go. We only went with what we knew we had and we could convict him of. And so he said he'd talk to us later on. He then sent word down through, there's a book out written by Gil Carrillo called Richard Ramirez, The Life and Crimes of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Or it's called The Night Stalker, The Life and Crimes of Richard Ramirez by Gil Carrillo. And on that, through him, Phil went up there to be the witness to his marriage when he got married to Darlene Ramirez. And Phil contacted me. We stood in communication with each other, and Phil was a good guy and a friend of mine. And he contacted me, said, Richard would like to talk to you now. And so I told Phil, well, you tell Richard if he's willing to tell me the truth and not BS me and waste my time, I'd be more than happy to go up there and visit him. But for me, just to take time to go visit him when it would be just like him going to Disneyland, that's a biggie. He gets me up there.
Yeah.
And so I never heard back. And probably he was upset. He became upset with me because I went ahead and badmouthed when he married Doreen. And when he got married to Doreen, the news media came and talked to me, and I said I thought it was a mockery of the criminal justice system and a mockery of the sacrament of marriage, because he wasn't in prison for rehabilitation. He was sentenced to death.
Yeah.
And why did we owe him? Why did he have the right to get married when he's in prison?
Yeah,
because it was never going to be consummated. He was never going to get a shot at taking her to bed or anything.
Really, but when you see these serial killers, they get caught. You got all these crazy broads, man. Just they get so fascinated with some of the things these guys did. I don't know if they do it because they want notoriety. I was married, to a serial killer. That's pretty wild, man.
I have no idea, George. That's somebody else's profession, not mine. Richard asked me, he said, why do you think I like this? Why do you think I was so evil, Gil? And I told him, Richard, if I could answer that, I'd be a doctor making a lot more money than I am as a cop. That's not for me to answer. Mine is but to gather the facts and make the presentation to the DA so we can convict you. That's all I'm here for, brother.
Unbelievable. And Gil, I'm the EastLA.com, the platform is still growing. I never in a million years thought I would EastLA.com. And so now that that we have the platform, this is what I'm going to use it for, is to connect with influential people that have made a difference in our city. And Gil, I want to really thank you for your service, for everything that you did, especially with this case. You sacrificed a lot of time, and we want to thank you because you brought peace to a lot of us, man. You really did, and I really just want to thank you for that, Gil.
Well, George, I thank you. I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for your continued support. And I thank the people the good law-abiding citizens and residents of East L.A. and all over the place, because without their support, this is a team effort. It's unfortunate that we in law enforcement spend 90% of our time on the 10% of the evil that's out there, when in fact, I wish we could be just the opposite and spend 90% of our time with the good people that's out there, and it's not. And you have to understand that I'm no different than you or any other person out there. I've got a family. I'm a human being, and I've been retired now I retired in 2009. So it's going on 9 years this year that I've been retired, and I got to run into the same cops that, people used to say, cops are no good. There's no good in every walk of life, and I don't care if you're a priest, if you're a doctor, if you're a minister, a fireman, I don't care. Teachers, teachers now are doing everything. So you got to take the good with the bad. Fortunately, there's 90% of us good people, such as yourself and your listeners, that are out there, George, that made the job all worthwhile. And if I had to do it all over again, starting from the time that I was in the armed force or in the Army to my career with the Sheriff's Department, I wouldn't change any of it.
And Gil, thank you for your service too. You were in Vietnam too, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Wow, that's crazy, man. A lot of Chicanos died in Vietnam.
Far too many of everybody.
And they never get acknowledged.
There are absolutely no winners in war, and we didn't. It was a different time. We didn't get acknowledged. I got choked up today. I was in Home Depot, and I just happened to I was wearing a T-shirt, and on the back of the T-shirt it said Vietnam veteran. And a couple of employees were talking, and they said, "Excuse me, sir." And I said, "Yes, sir. Can I help you?" And they said, "Did you do time in Vietnam?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Just want to say thank you for your service." And George, I tell you, I got choked up. It meant so much, stuff that I'd never heard. And these young men were sincere. They weren't joking. They were very sincere. And I'm not saying anybody has to do that, but to have been acknowledged, especially from the way we were treated when I came back, it was very special. So it is very meaningful for me.
Yes, and I appreciate everything you did, man. I mean, I just think this is just a fascinating story, even though it was not a good story. But it's crazy how East LA came into the picture because they caught him there. It's pretty crazy. But he never killed anybody in East LA, So I think he probably knew not to be around there,
That's right. He knew better.
Yeah, he knew better. But so now, Gil, you're retired now. You're enjoying your retired life now.
I'm enjoying retirement mostly because I have a couple of small grandchildren still. And what I didn't get to do with my own kids when I was working, especially working homicides, in hindsight, I wish I'd have spent more time with them. Although they came out good, I just wish I look back and I missed an awful lot. Yeah. So I miss nothing since I've retired. I miss nothing with my grandchildren. I mean, I don't care from school plays to baseball, football, you name it. I was fortunate enough, one of my granddaughters, the oldest grandchild I have, went to a school of performing arts, got a scholarship. She's toured the world, George, singing and dancing, and now she's back and she wants to become a dance and teaching and singing instructor. She's doing part-time teaching at the school, working her way through life. I've got a grandson that wants to take after his grandfather and his dad. He wants to be a cop. And now I got two little ones, and I get to spend time with them. And so what I miss with my family, my own children, I'm making up for with my grandchildren. And of course, I'm spending more time with my wife.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the best thing there, man, to be with family. Everybody wears a cap, either a police officer, or you're a fire department, or you're a business owner. So everybody, it's all about family.
Yeah.
And I've known you since I was 20 years old, Gil. 21 years old, I think. I was still a young pup.
That was before you had that great beard.
Oh, I know. My wife always bags on me. She goes, "Man, you're turning silver." I said, "It's all right, baby. I'm nice and shiny. Shine it up."
And it's all been good, George. It's
yes, Gil. Anything you want to say? Anything you want to say to the listeners of East LA?
I just like to thank everybody. I'm the one that really should be grateful to have the support and have the friends that I've built over the years, and to be able to walk around with my head high, knowing that all I have is my word, my integrity, and I love the barrio, brother. You can take the boy out of the barrio, but you can't take the barrio out of the boy.
No
I
way.
still go to the barrio. I still go down there to get my car fixed. When we want good food, go down to the barrio. I haven't missed a good meal lately, and so it's all good, and I just love it. It's my people.
Yes, man. I mean, I'm the same way. That's why, when I got involved with the internet and I started buying all these names, I went and I took these names away from people who owned them. They were going to use them for other purposes, but inside of me, I said, no way, I got to protect the culture. And that's why I bought all the domain names, and I kind of surrounded all the domain names on these platforms. So this way, the world could see that East LA has a really great culture, great people, great families, great food. Yeah, there's bad apples here and there, but it's bad apples everywhere.
That's right.
So I'm very fortunate, to be in the position I am, and I never in a million years thought I'll be able to interview you and talk a little bit about the Night Stalker case. So I want to thank you for your time, Gil, and everything. And enjoy your retirement. I'm going to go out there next month, and I want to connect with you. But I just wanted to thank you again.
I'll be waiting to hear from you, and believe me, it's my pleasure, and I thank you, George, for reaching out to me. I can't believe this is happening either.
You need to write a book. I'm going to say it. He needs to write a book. You, not nobody else. You, because it's better out of the horse's mouth, man, than hearing it watered down somewhere else, and then they're getting credit that they reported the right story, but they don't know all the details like what you saw. And I don't know, Gil. I'll do anything to help you do that, man.
Well, thank you, George. I'll be waiting to hook up with you next month.
Yes, Gil. Thank you
have
so
a good
much.
one.
And
thank all your listeners.
All the listeners, you guys, thank you. Next week, we're going to be interviewing Ray Corleone. He is the guitarist for the Latin All-Stars. He's one of the baddest guitarists. And the next week after that, we're gonna interview Little Willie G. So we're gonna be doing this.
Give Ray Carry On.
Excuse me, Gil.
Give Ray Carry On and Little Willie G my fondest regards.
I will tell Ray. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna talk to him this week, getting prepared for his interview. Also, they just did a cool album with Ralph Pagan or something like that.
Ralph Pagan.
Yes, they did a special album, and he's in it. And so, of course, he's a great musician. And just like I said, Gil, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your exampleship in my life. Because even though I saw you here and there, you're always the coolest cop, man. Straight up,
thank you.
Out of East LA.
Thank you.
Okay, Gil.
All right. Good night, George.
God bless. Take care.
God bless you.
Love you, bro. Thank everybody, and we'll see you next week on the next show on EastLA.com. Bye-bye.